live our lives orbiting a spark. We look up at our sun, feeling its heat, watching it command the planets, and we call it a giant. A roaring sphere of fire, 1,000,000 times larger than our home. It feels like the pinnacle of power. But the universe is unimaginably dark, and in that dark, our sun is nothing but a flickering ember. Far beyond the edge of our brightly lit neighborhood, the scale of reality begins to distort. Deep inside the Scutum Centaurus arm of the Milky Way, 20,000 light-years away, there is a shadow looming in the interstellar dust. A dying god of fire. Its name is Stephenson 218, and it is the physical embodiment of megalophobia. Numbers lose their meaning here. Calling it massive is an insult to its geometry. The only way to comprehend this Leviathan is to drag it into our world. Imagine erasing our sun and dropping this hypergiant into the dead center of our solar system. There is no warning, no slow burning apocalypse, just an instantaneous erasure. The moment it appears, its surface swallows Mercury. Venus, a world of crushing pressure and toxic clouds, is atomized in a fraction of a millisecond. Then, Earth. Every empire that ever rose, every human who has ever lived or died, vanishes into the nuclear dark. We are not burned, we are simply silenced, a microscopic whisper lost inside the belly of a star. But the Titan is still expanding. The wall of dark red plasma surges outward, an unstoppable tide of gravity and heat. Mars is consumed without a trace. The entire asteroid belt is vaporized into nothingness. Hundreds of millions of miles away, in the freezing void, sits Jupiter, a gas giant massive enough to hold 1,000 Earths inside its violent storms. Against this hypergiant, the king of our planets is entirely powerless. It is swept beneath the rolling, boiling surface and completely incinerated. The ocean of fire continues to swell, breaching the orbit of Saturn. If you were standing on the ice of one of Saturn's moons, looking toward the inner solar system, there would be no black sky. The stars would be gone. The entire universe above you would be replaced by a curving, endless wall of crimson plasma, millions of degrees hot, looming over your world. $10 billion of our suns could fit inside its volume. Even visualizing it swallowing planets is not enough to capture the terror of its size. Look at light. Light is the absolute limit of reality, a phantom traveling at 186,000 miles every single second. It is so fast it can wrap around the Earth 7 times in the space of a human heartbeat. Fire a beam of light across the equator of our sun, and it completes the journey in just over 14 seconds. Stephenson 218 breaks this fundamental law. It turns the fastest entity in existence into a crawling prisoner. Fire that same beam of light along the equator of this hypergiant. It does not finish the journey in a few seconds. It does not take a minute. That beam of light, traveling at the maximum speed the universe allows, crawls along the surface for nearly 9 agonizing hours just to circle the star one time. It is a geometry of madness. If you were flying a commercial passenger jet across its surface, moving at cruising speed, it would take 500 years of non-stop flight just to return to where you started. It is a cosmic tragedy, a star balancing on the absolute edge of total collapse. It has grown too large. Its outer layers are so unimaginably distant from its core that the gravity holding them together is dangerously weak. The star is actively losing the battle against its own mass. It is bleeding. Every single second, the hypergiant sheds millions of tons of its own flesh into the freezing dark. It is suffocating in a blinding, toxic nebula of its own dying matter, a shroud of red dust and radioactive winds extending for billions of miles into the void. And its surface is a vision of absolute hell. It is not smooth. It is a violently shifting, lumpy ocean of instability. Deep within its core, unimaginable heat forces its way up, creating colossal convection cells, bubbles of boiling fire rising from the abyss, bursting violently into space. Just one of these erupting bubbles on the surface is larger than our entire solar system. It is a world of endless, deafening destruction, crying out into the silent dark of the Milky Way. A fire this violent cannot burn forever. Stephenson 218 is living on borrowed time. Because it is so massive, its core must consume nuclear fuel at a suicidal rate just to keep the crushing weight of its outer layers from falling inward. It is starving. It is in the final, desperate chapter of its life. Soon, in the cosmic blink of an eye, the fuel in its heart will finally dry up. When that exact moment arrives, the outward pressure of nuclear fusion will stop. Gravity, the quiet, undefeated architect of the universe, will claim its prize. Without the fusion to support it, the 10 billion solar masses of this titan will collapse inward. The outer shell of the star will fall toward the dead core at a terrifying fraction of the speed of light. All of that unimaginable scale crashing into the center in a fraction of a second. The universe will flinch. The resulting shockwave will trigger a hypernova, an explosion of such absolute violence that for a brief moment it will outshine the entire galaxy. A lethal, invisible spear of gamma radiation will scream across the cosmos, sterilizing any worlds unlucky enough to be caught in its path, ripping the atmospheres off planets light years away. The Titan will be torn apart, its body scattered into the dark as an expanding cloud of radioactive ghost light. And in the exact center, where the largest star in the universe once stood, there will be a tear in reality, a point of infinite density, a terrifyingly massive black hole born from the ashes of a fallen giant. We are 20,000 light years away. We are safe. The death of this god will not reach us. But knowing it exists changes the dark. The night sky is not a peaceful roof over our heads. It is a wild, untamed wilderness, a graveyard of giants. Out there, in the freezing depths, there are dying stars holding on to their final breath. There are scales that shatter the human mind. We are just dust drifting in the dark, waiting for the giants to fall.